Hello everyone, welcome back to the end of the year and the last update of the year. Well, I don't have to say that what a year has been because everyone knows that this year has been how it has been. It's very hard to define really this last period of like 3-4 months of the year. I could say that's disconnect or like squeeze or just go with it, also new beginning. But I'm going to go into details throughout the video, explaining all these things, or well, kind of like this definitions and title of this update with examples. So let's start with physical changes because this has been really important, really predominant and prominent this year, throughout this year, and also toward the end of this year. As you may know, if you watch obviously these videos for a long time now, you know that last year around this time when I was doing the update, I was just starting to recuperate from what I experienced, like leaky gut syndrome or whatever, and I was still trying to figure out how to work around this thing, what was actually the problem. Well, I explained what was the problem. Obviously were the changes, there was another shift, and actually increasingly until that point I became sensitive to gluten and sugar, although I don't eat that much refined sugar, but honestly it's very hard not to find it in basically anything these days. Like it's almost impossible. And I'm not talking about necessarily about the natural sugar, like the one that you find in fruit, but like it could be hidden in bread, although I don't eat commercial bread, but even there could be certain things or whatever, or on occasions. Anyways, so as I was like finding balance once again toward the summer, I would say, is like finally I was feeling like, okay, I can do this now. Things had settled a little bit. I felt like I couldn't eat those things. It was like I was accepting all this stuff, but then other changes, like other shifts, other upgrades and other infusions of energy were taking place, which have accelerated again everything once again, including my biology, the biologies of everyone else in general. And one of the first things that started to be predominant, which I explained in the last update, was the fact that I couldn't sleep. I tried like really hard to just force myself to go early to sleep, but even if I would go to sleep, I couldn't. I would lie there and nothing would happen, or I would just like doze off, but not really like deep sleep, and I would wake up feeling like I never really slept and exhausted, feeling like really exhausted. So I fought with this throughout the entire year and up until November, where again another important shift took place. And this again once meant that my biology, everything was like thrown off its axis, and it's like, oh, now I have to deal with what is this now. One ingredient was the fact, because of the acceleration throughout the year, I couldn't sleep, so I was tired, I was exhausted. So this had affected also my internal balance in a sense. Although I would like help myself with some magnesium, I was like helping myself to have at least, I don't know, a few hours of sleep, because I would not sleep during the night really, but like I would have like smaller like naps during the day or whenever I could. So that helped. But toward the October, November, this already was not happening at all, and it was really bad. I was like, okay, what's going on? And also at the same time with this exhaustion, again, I started to have again that sense like something is wrong with my gut again. Although I've been good this year, I was still continuing to take my those supplements that I was explaining. That's why I could not force myself like to go into deeper like longer periods of dry mode. I just kept everything to a minimum. But this was already like, again, something happened. And something happened because, as I said, there was this increase in energy like throughout these months, and I'll explain some of the shifts later. But for me, it's like physically what happened was like, it was like another one of those crises. Like one day I woke up really weird, and whatever I was eating, like I felt like it would go to my head, and I was like, okay, here we go. Came back, no, it wasn't the leaky gut. So it was this exhaustion, but also because my nervous system is sensitive. I'm somebody that my entire life I work with my mind a lot. For me, physical activity is like relaxation. So everyone who works with their mind a lot knows that you need a lot of energy. You consume a lot of energy to solve problems, things, and you know what I'm talking about. Find solutions. That's how I work. And plus this increase in energy, acceleration, which didn't let me sleep, that was too much this year. So I decided to break the cycle. Plus, I was like, on top of that, my kidneys, because this was obviously connected to all these things, started to show that like something wrong. The lower back again, pain resurfaced, which was a few years back, and I thought that was like solve that. But even if like in a month like September, October, I was actually doing mostly liquids, because at that point I felt like I needed to, and smoothies, to just I needed to keep clean. And like actually throughout this month until now, I've been in this sense really clean. But because things have changed, even if you have healthy things, they can be too much for your body, for your kidneys. For instance, like if you consume too much like spinach, like I did in some periods, like for a month, like a lot, to help with iron and whatever, which is good. But because my body now is even more sensitive, it can be a buildup of oxalates and things like that, and then you start to have a problem with your kidneys or whatever. So things were getting a little bit weird in this area. So toward the end of November, I decided I'm going to do a detox cleanse, which was with apple cider vinegar, and it helped immensely. And for 2 weeks, I've done like 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar with like this much water, like in a glass of water. For the first 2 days, actually, I had 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar, which helped, was like a shock to the things that was accumulated. Because before that, actually, I had some blood work done this year, and everything showed that I'm normal. I don't have any problems, kidney stones, whatever. But you know, things change. Things change. Like last year, when I was before that, I had done my blood work, tests, whatever, and it was fine. And then 2 weeks, I was not fine again. So it was similar in this sense. So as I was doing this, and at the same time trying to recuperate from exhaustion, which was like, I think toward the second week, because the first week I didn't want to put too much input, like because the apple cider vinegar, although it's great, has enzymes, has all sorts of good things, and dissolves kidney stones and other things that shouldn't be there. Has cleared a lot of the things, and it felt great immediately. Like in 2 or 3 days, I felt how my body was like working really hard, and I was giving also water a lot. But as a side note, it's funny, as like 2 or 3 years ago, when I was having those periods, longer periods of dry mode, I never felt dehydrated when I was in dry mode. Now, when I actually am consuming, or in periods when I'm consuming water, and like more water than I would have usually had in the past, I feel dehydrated, like really weird. And I understand why all this is happening, because we have entered another phase where the information in our whatever energy system, which also is the biology, translated into biology, the physical part, needs a lot of water to actually dissolve, rewrite things, and this also goes into other levels that for now remain invisible for most people. And that's why it feels like, where did I go? because it goes in other places to do other things, so it will have an effect on what you see. So yes, I've been consuming a lot of water, and I've done the detox, which helped, and yeah, it's been better. Also, what I found to help me with sleep, with my lack of sleep and exhaustion, was immediately I was like, okay, what does it help? What did help in the past? Which was like valerian. Let's take some valerian. I took for the first 2 nights, like when I decided to do that, and I knew that when I was taking this, actually when I finished my second book, I was taking this again to recuperate from another really exhausting year. It helped, but also would give me nightmares, but also visions, and like it's connecting with it was connecting me with the telluric plane, and like if you would have ayahuasca or things like this, you might understand what I mean here. Well, I know some kind of mushrooms or whatever, although I never took any mushrooms or ayahuasca, but I imagine it would be the same. However, this year taking this was not, because my biology has changed, my energy, my frequency has changed. So it was not the same thing. It could not really give me the same, I don't know, sensation, feelings, dreams, visions, whatever. But what has happened is like it connected me to more of like where most people are and now deal with a lot of like hate, resentment, aggressivity, is like being aggressive. And I would notice this in people, and like coming in contact with certain situation, which actually this has kind of escalated, but I'm going to explain why this kind of things has escalated in another bit of the video, another segment of the video. Anyway, but like second day into doing the valerian helping my sleep thing, I received a shot on my right arm. And by that, I don't mean a physical doctor here. That's all I have to say. So yeah, I woke up the next day and like my arm was like hurting, and like, what now? And so the next night, I couldn't sleep at all again. Like, as though like the first and second night was decent. I was like, the first night I felt like finally, I feel like my nervous system is completely disconnecting, because there's also things that, you know, we also carry a lot of, like, where all sorts of implants and all sorts of things that they work or less, as you change your frequency, they work less or they don't affect as much, but there's still things that, let's say, want to trap you into a certain frequency. I explained to you, like, about the frequency, the fence, frequency fences that actually everyone carries, and yeah. So as I was like finally finding some like release, like finally I was just okay, I can just go to sleep. By the third night, this didn't happen, but somehow I found more peace. Like I found like how my system was recuperating, like my nervous system, and my bag under my eyes started to like shrink, because I was like, that was too bad, like lately, whatever, like that's not okay. But I could not take longer for to continue with valerian for long, because I didn't like how it connected me to the other people, and like all this like things that now actually resurface and have to be processed by people. It's like now that, let's say, the unconscious planes then right now are being like compacted and brought to the awareness. That's the translation that most people understand, and have to be dealt with, because they're being like reabsorbed, and then after you've done this, then you can move forward. And there's a lot of things to be reabsorbed that most people like put in the field and have no idea what they're doing. Anyways, the other help that I found was B6. in the past I've taken, I've taken B complex or whatever, but this was like for a specific, this is supposed to target this specific problem with my sleep, because in the summer months and throughout like September, October, I've been taking like magnesium to help me with the sleep, and it helped, but not really. Like I felt like I was in between states, not asleep, not awake either. But I didn't feel like that exhausted when I would wake up, although I felt like I didn't feel like I sleep. Anyways, so yeah, taking B6, this actually helped me regain balance in my nervous system, and even if I don't feel like I can get a full night's sleep, it's not the same when I wake up. Like I feel like I've recuperated certain like parts of myself, like physically. I just hope that, I don't know, somehow I will get to that point where I'm allowed to really like fully sleep, because I know it's the acceleration, but also at the same time, because it's not that simple, it's also, I explained to you, there's one side of the story that moves forward and another side which includes other things, people, beings, that actually siphon energy from this reality, and because they know that things have moved, things have advanced, so is passed beyond the point where things can be turned to where they want to. It's like, now let's get as much as we can from everyone. It's very exhausting. So it's like, on one hand you're moving further, but on the other side somebody's like pulling you. It's like, that's how it felt for me, at least in October and November. And actually this has to do with the election. I'll explain this later. So that's how it felt, October, November, for me, like being pulled into, like split into, like one, the other forward. That also was another reason why things have been really exhausting for me. In terms of shifts, there have been quite a few shifts in this past 4 months. An important one has been at the end of August, beginning of September, and an increase of influx throughout September, which brought a lot of expansion. A lot of things have unblocked, a lot of things were possible, all of a sudden things that haven't been possible. Also for me in my personal life, a lot of things finally could be dealt with, done, because of all these things, the chaos. But even before that, certain things that have been blocked, I finally could just deal with them and solve them. And also the books were back because of that in October. But this is more than just like, I mean, the impact that it had generally, like, okay, certain things have unblocked. There's a lot of healing that took place, more healing, and other layers of healing took place inside me. And also very interesting messages that I was receiving. But then again, as I said, there's certain things that I can't talk about for various reasons. But one thing that I can talk about and I can share is about me becoming visible, like an issue that I had for a very long time, and I never really knew that I had it, not being visible. And I'm going to give you like a little bit of a background to understand actually what this healing meant. Like, so when I was in high school, I was the chief of my class. My class teacher was a math teacher, so she appointed me in 9th grade to be the chief of the class. And nobody else like argued with her, like, well, should be somebody else. No. And so I've been voted throughout my high school years, every year, as chief of my class. And I'm not the type of, say, boss or whatever to impose myself on others, or I don't know. So obviously people like me being whatever in charge of things because they saw certain things in me. As I was going to university, well, changing actually schools, because first I studied the art academy, and then I shifted 2 years later to architecture school. So there I was asked again to run for like to be part of the Senate, the university Senate, and I was like, nah, not interested, but you're good for this, you should do this. Some people suggested, or some people that obviously saw me, knew me and knew how I was, knew my abilities, capabilities as a person, not just my skills, talents that brought me to the architecture school. And there was also another colleague of mine that he was like, yes, I'm going for it. And in the end, he got the job. But because I just refused not to just take part into this whole whatever running thing. And why was that? When I was a student, at this point, I was within a completely different type of group of people than the one that was at my high school. In my high school class, I felt like we all kind of like, not necessarily were the same, but we kind of saw each other, we understood each other. Here it was like, I already felt different. I mean, I felt different there, but here I already felt different from the rest of whatever people that I was within. And I was just passionate about doing the things that I was doing. I was just so obsessed with the things that I was doing, to create, to design, to think, to whatever, that basically consumed my time, my energy, all the time. And when this situation came into my life, I was just like taking the temperature in each room, and I was seeing like how people would see me when they would hear, she's going to run for that whatever senator position, blah, blah. And although there were people that approved, I saw people that they just wouldn't have it, like, who do you think you are, whatever. I could read what they were actually thinking and mostly feeling it. And as an empath, and back then I didn't have the power, the things that I can do and whatever, protect myself now. I didn't have those things. And back then I could feel all this, like, not just nasty, but like unpleasant things that other people would think about me, even if they didn't know me or whatever, but they would think that they would know me, or didn't even care to know me. They weren't interested in knowing me. And like, who do you think you are, whatever, blah, blah. And because I'm not the type of person to like force myself on someone to like, oh, like me. I'm like, oh, you don't want me? I don't want you either. So that was kind of my philosophy. So, and it still kind of is that thing. But now I understood that if I have to do a job, regardless of if I'm liked or not, you have to do it either way. So, because you're the man for the job, woman for the job. So you just have to do it. And although I was like, come on, you should do this because you are better at this, because this and this. I said, yeah, but they don't see that. They're not interested in doing that. And for me back then, to make myself visible, to show not just my intention, but like feel like I have to explain myself to other people, how I am, how I think, how whatever, and was like, not that it was like I was beneath me, but felt like, oh, this is tiring. This is just, no, I don't want to waste time on this. I mean, it was easier to like, okay, give me a project. I have to do this, great. I'll just do that. And I was good on delivering that. So that was how I was interested, like growing my skills, honing my skills, and becoming good at that. So that meant that I would like hide behind on my screen, whatever, or my drawing board or whatever, and just be busy with that, but not really being visible. Later in life, this has translated in certain things that, yes, she delivers, she does great things, but because she didn't show herself, well, we're going to take her for granted. And there's a lot of situations where that happened, and I didn't know why did that happen. Like, how is this possible? Like, I thought that people are like me. I don't think about certain ethics, certain whatever. No. So I had to learn to become visible. So when I started actually making these videos, and as I was coming back from my depression, among many other things that making these videos meant, was an exercise for me to make myself visible of who I am, what I am. Because this has value beyond achievement, the things that I've done or I'm doing or whatever. I am the source of those things. Without me, those things can't exist. So this has to have some value. So this time, like around September, October, this type of like realization healing took place. Like finally, this was like, we closed the door on that. Not because I didn't work on other aspects that concerned this kind of like something that had happened in my life in the past. So yeah, that was part of this opening, this shift, this huge shift that took place around that time. Another symptom of like this shift has translated in a lot of light. I've explained that I've been seeing more light, like my eyes are still adjusting. I have periods of time where when I'm outside and it's hard. Even when I'm inside, at certain times of the day, I can feel like sometimes the light bothers me, but also lately was also because being exhausted. But as I'm getting better, I see that it's better, but I'm still sensitive to the light in this sense. So there were days, I remember, I think September was like, we were outside, some nice cafe, and it wasn't that warm, but it felt like when I was returning from that, there was so much light. It's like I would sit outside, it would dissolve, like, I don't know, not that I was stressed at that day, but it's like whatever pressure things I would like carry in my shoulder, whatever tension that I would carry from whatever day before that, it was just completely dissolved. And I would return home like I would have been at the beach the whole day. I would have been at the beach, and wouldn't have done much aside from having a tea and just look at people or whatever, the sky. So there were a lot of days like that. Just coming back, like you sit outside, although you're in the shade, but you feel like you've been out by the beach all day, and you come like completely relaxed, but at the same time tired, but like pleasantly relaxed and tired, if you know what I mean. But then again, recharged. And yeah, I think I mentioned in the beginning of the video the weird cycles of hydration and feeling dehydrated at certain times, like especially when consuming water, and you ask yourself, where did that go? It's like, why am I so dry? Like, although when I was in dry mode, I didn't feel that. I explained that in the beginning of the video why. So yeah, that's another symptom of this kind of like shifts and upgrades thresholds that took place until now. Another thing was like at the beginning of December, was that, again, another point was reached. And it's funny, I don't want to be gross. So I was on the toilet and the reality changed because, it's my life. And like, oh, and I was back home, so to speak, home, but not at home here, home and the other reality. I'm like, so yeah, there are interferences of things like that, and whenever I have this like, say, going home moment, I feel hopeful for what's to come, because there's still a lot of, events that have to take place and a lot of work that has to be done. And it's nice when I have this moment where I'm just like, oh, it's a different story. It's this reality that I've been carrying within me since I was a child. So it has its moment when it's resurfacing, like sometimes in unexpected ways and at unexpected moments, situations. Yeah, so that happened. I was saying in the beginning that I could title this period in various ways, and one of them would be deconstruct or deconstructing phase, or the squeeze. And what do I mean by that? I've been seeing for a long time now that I'm outgrowing things, and it's like hard to give you other words that can describe that. But as I was going through this period and the shifts, it's like this helped me to give you a better understanding of actually, because I'm living constantly levels of that, of like outgrowing things, and now I can actually explain it better for you to understand why what do I mean by outgrowing. Demolition phase is like when things end abruptly, like your life comes crashing down on you. It's like you don't know what hit you or stuff like that, and abruptly you're put on a different course, and you're like, oh my god, what happened? Everything is destroyed. What am I doing here? Why? What have I done wrong? Why me? Blah blah blah. So that's demolition phase. It's very painful. I lived through it a long time ago. The phase that I'm talking about I could name it, that's the word, deconstruct or deconstructing. Because what's happening is that's what already like many levels or layers later is when things, habits, patterns are taking apart, like piece by piece by piece by piece, like there was 1, and then it's 2, then it's 4, then it's 6, then it's whatever, and you start seeing all this bits and pieces of things which form a habit, a thing, whatever pattern, etc., etc. So that's been happening a lot. So that's what I mean by outgrowing. So today, years ago, this situation split in 2, and then in 4, and then in 6, and then in 8, and then in 10, and then in whatever. So that's what I mean by layers, different layers, levels of outgrowing. And it's like it's like you see it under a microscope. You have a piece of tissue or whatever, and then you see, as you zoom in, you see more and more things, not just the tissue, which is here you see a piece of like, I don't know, skin thing, whatever. And it's like, then you see, oh, it has this and this cell and this whatever, blah blah, all those like components. As you zoom in, you see more and more detail. So that's how I experience life. Like it becomes like zooming in, but at the same time actually zooming out, because I'm seeing it for what it is. Because you don't see when you're like when you're so close. When you're so close to it, you just see one thing. Also, this is life. Whatever this is, how am I supposed to? Whatever. As you actually go a little bit back, in the back, you move yourself to the back, you actually have a little space, more space to see things. So that's what's happening for me. I'm seeing things from a different perspective. Although I'm zooming, it feels like I'm zooming out, but at the same time I'm zooming in. It's a paradox. I told you have to get used to with paradoxes. So when I'm outside now, or like at the restaurant, I have many times when I feel like, although it has been rare this year with the outings and how things have been, but one of those times I just felt like everything around me, like were people, things, whatever, I felt like toys. Like it lost the meaning it had many times. And even if I'm like coming back to where I am normally, I'm not at the same level where I was even a week ago, a month ago, a year ago. So it never comes back to that. I can never return to how things have been, even if I would like it. Sometimes, so I can, have the illusion that I'm enjoying something. It feels like, this is that, and I can enjoy it. So that's a constant thing in my life. It's not something that I can separate, and it's just like this week is here, and then something happened and triggers another. Not just realization and healing, but at the same time, things have moved again, and then more pieces, and So it's like a natural thing, and also because I'm maintaining the the cleaning process. Inside myself, that helps. Although there's moments where it's like, even if you want to clear on something, you don't have the energy at that moment, but you're like, I write things down so I know when I can come back to it and feel like now I can just again go there with full force, attack it, so I can dissolve, because now another amount of energy has become available, so I can like deal with this at this phase. Yeah. In regards to something that I've been trying to explain to you, I mean, I've been saying this many times, that there's certain things that I see, I'm shown, that I can't translate, I can't make it into something that can be understood down here. And why is that? As you access higher energy, but much higher than the level that you currently exist, your focus in, your awareness is, those things, when you move up, they make sense. They're normal. It feels like normal. But when this is much further down in like energy, when you come back here, although those things made sense, when you come back to a lower level, although you're trying to keep them like in your mind, it's like, I'm going to remember this, I'm going to remember this. When you're here, you're like, I know it makes sense, but I can't remember how or what that was. So that's the effect of like moving from one level. I mean, different levels, like how far away, and then you have to push back, like where you are now, where your focus is. But when you're closer to something, say in the future, which means another point in energy, more energy available, it's easier for me to just pull that down here to make it into something that can be understood, but it's not fully understood because you don't have the space and only the experience of it until you will have the space and the experience of it. But I can make it into something that could be introduced into your awareness. So that's the biggest problem, is like when I moved further in energy and coming back where I'm supposed to be at the moment, and it's like, but when it's closer than it's coming, it's much easier to deal with, to explain certain things. Although yes, certain things that are certain truths are universal and they can be seen and understood at whatever various levels of energy, but there are other things that have to do with mind, life expansion, and how life is and can be lived, and what ideas, what things can be experienced at certain levels that cannot yet be translated for the minds here. Only when I'm very close or something like that. Also, this should make like obvious why certain things feel like now they're new, and then all of a sudden they're old. Like take for instance the phones, like the mobile phones. Remember how those mobile phones were in, like when they showed up, like when people started to buy them end of 90s, early 2000s, and how those phones look like, and what we have now is like. And back then those things were like, wow, they're like just super like innovation, and it felt like, wow, science fiction. And now is what, 20 years, and it feels like that's primitive, that's whoa. And that's actually should show is like the difference in energies, like how much energy has been accreted, and which has allowed for certain minds to like tap into this energy and like download certain like more abstract thought that can be introduced, turn into a form that can be absorbed, turn into something that people can understand, can use. There are also things that still are not understood by people. Like, I don't know how, as I said, like how technology works. It's still seen like the devil for most people. I don't know. They have a general understanding. Oh, I know this is Bluetooth, but you don't know what Bluetooth really is, how it works, the mechanism, the elements, the whatever. You know that maybe it's a file transferring whatever thing, but how does it work? You know, the mechanism behind it. The same happens with what people consider like, well, in the past was this way, like people were thinking certain diseases are caused by the devil. And then, well, we had microscope, we have people discovering all sorts of things, and all of a sudden, oh, we have germs, we have microbes, we have these things that cause these problems, and how can we get rid of them, whatever. So that also should show is like the difference in energy or in times, like what time is like at a certain point in time. If you have, like, there's no space that doesn't exist in your awareness. You don't know that there's microbes, germs, things, whatever they're doing, that it's just the devil. At that point, it's just the devil. But as you expand a little bit, wait, there's more, wait, and then enough energy has been allowed in for certain inventions, innovation, things that can explain, bring light for the rest of the people. So that's how you should understand the importance of what I'm saying is like energy is, time is energy accretion, and how does that translate into various situations, like why I cannot say or find the translation for this, because this is from a higher point energy, and there's minds here, most minds don't have space, they don't have the space to understand that or the experience to understand that yet. So it's just like it's nothing there to actually even come close to crystallize that point. So that's why, that's what actually going through energy means, and that's why it's going to become more and more interesting, because, well, there's more stuff to discover, which actually is, well, not really discovering, rediscovering, but then again, there's also new things in the sense that the ultimate thing that, I mean, what evolves in the end is the thought. So thought, concepts, ideas, that's what evolve. And when one has more access to more energy in its accretion, will uncover more interesting things that will also put new light on the things that until now were limited or thought impossible. I know, like certain diseases, certain things that are going to be eliminated, mortality. There's a lot of things coming in the future that should make you excited if you stick around or if you're able to go with what's coming in the right direction. So yeah, that's another thing that you should know. One more thing I would like to add to the things that I explained about these differences in energy accretion. Things like looking glass technology. I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about. Some type of alien technology available already. Why it can't see past a certain point in time, which, as I said, it's energy accretion. Time is energy accretion. Is because the technology comes from, well, it is made within its certain, like, it has a limitation because it was designed within a certain frequency band. And when things move beyond that frequency band and they go into another level, it can't see beyond that point, because that's a technology that's limited to where it was created. If it would have been a technology that came from a higher level, that could have seen not just this level, but down below as well. Anything that is above can see below. The things that are below cannot really see, well, above or whatever, unless they have help. You understand? Or you have the codes or whatever. So this is why, at this point, I mean, why they're still trying to fight to move things to push things on a certain, let's say, timeline. Things still like are forced towards certain whatever directions, certain events to take place. But it's already impossible because things have moved past beyond a certain point where those can be like suppressed like before. There's still whatever delays in certain ways and areas, but the energy is already growing and will push things, people out like that. I would like to end the video today with a few thoughts on election, but from the perspective of the timeline, not necessarily what most people are, I don't know, into, like in the fight between Trump and Biden. By the way, I'm not a supporter of either, like of Trump or Biden. Throughout this year, as I was saying, there's been this like pressure to move things into another direction, to mold the opinions of people, work on certain sensibilities, like hit where it hurts the most, especially in America, which is this fight, this thing, black versus white, or whatever the story. I'm not an American, and I'm going to give you my opinion as well on this. So there are certain stage events that have taken place throughout the year that have made or kind of like forced a certain direction. Because if you see certain things like in the media, oh, this is like whatever, so this is the bad guy, this is the good guy, it's very easy, it's like to manipulate people. I'm not saying that Trump is a saint or Biden is a saint. I'm just saying that certain things have been staged, so you can shift things into a certain direction. Also, don't be fooled now just because Biden, whatever, has named, let's say, in important roles people from other, let's say, ethnic groups. Don't be fooled. It's like, it's easy to see this as like, oh, look, he's a progressive guy and he's going to do this. And then in reality, other people run the show. This is just more for like, like getting likes, getting that like support to say, look, I'm the good guy, I'm going to do great things. And it's easier to make someone as Trump, who is flamboyant character, to make it look even more ridiculous and more whatever, out of place by taking things out of context. So, like, it's very easy to manipulate when you have, like, characters like that. It's very easy to do certain things. So throughout the year, that has been this pressure to move things toward a certain result, and also move things to a certain, like in the past, to move things like where they were 4 years ago or something like that. Put things on that course again. But because the energy has changed, even if you have the result that you have now, this is not going to actually move things backwards, because energetically there's no support for that. Of course, it's going to still continue this like conflict, this like battle of good versus bad, whatever that may mean, will still continue. But things cannot go back to how they were. They simply do not have support for that. And a lot of things have escalated this year. As I was saying, because of the certain events that have been staged. And when you hit in certain sensitivities, like this thing in America, what's the biggest problem, or has been, whatever, black versus white, whatever situation. I don't want to undermine or diminish the certain situations that have happened in the past, but I also want to point out that when there's no discernment, when there's no clarity, it's very easy to say that certain people or certain things that being said, oh, all of a sudden you're racist. Like now it's so easy to just be like called a racist because you said something and you haven't been politically correct to say the other thing. Is like there is like all of a sudden you're not allowed to say your mind, not necessarily in a disrespectful way, but like to point out certain things that don't work or certain things that need to be changed. And so a lot of these things have escalated in a way that I find it in certain ways unnecessary. In regards to discrimination, yes, it's a big problem, but it's not just a thing black versus white. In America, might have been until now in many ways. But as somebody who's not American, and by the way, I live this life, I'm talking from personal experience. I know that discrimination and abuse does not know any particular race or ethnic group or country or whatever. So that happens every day. Millions of people experience this every day in some form or another. Either it is because coming from a certain country, or gender, or age, or political or spiritual creed, or whatever. So this happens all the time. Yes, discrimination is something that needs to be addressed and not allowed to like escalate. But then again, I see also this like other side of things where, as I said, people would take advantage of certain things, so they immediately would say, "Oh, you're racist" or whatever, and take advantage of that in a different way. So what generates discrimination? Obviously, there are histories, like certain facts, certain things that says, okay, this country did this to this country, or these people did this to those people, which generate this kind of like hate and frustrations and all sorts of whatever feelings towards a particular group. So in the sense, that's why I said it's like discrimination it doesn't belong. It's not just black versus white. This could be just discrimination within one racial group, white against white and black against black, Asian against Asian, etc., etc. Even if you're like from the same countries, like you would be from, I don't know what kind of part of the country, and somebody else would be from another part of the country, and there would be all sorts of like, I don't know, beliefs, prejudices that, oh, if you're coming from that part of the country, you're like this, and if you're coming from that part of the country, you're like that. And although certain, let's say, prejudices might be based on certain, I don't know, truths, what that means, truth in this sense, like certain experiences that you experience, that some people react like this or whatever, what hurts the most is the generalization. Because that's actually what causes in the end the discrimination, a generalization that says everyone is the same. And it's not. And that's where people actually have to work on understanding, open themselves up, just like, because if you want to eliminate discrimination, you have to want to understand that not everyone is the same, even if they come from the same group of whatever people, things, or whatever. Another way to actually, if you want to dissolve discrimination or like the prejudices, is actually, regardless of where you come from, if you think that you grew up in a family that you didn't have much, or you have a lot, or whatever, it doesn't matter, or who your parents are, what matters in the end is your choices. You can choose to elevate or not. Like, your choices can elevate you or lower you. That's the bottom line. Doesn't matter the other things. Yes, certain contexts can help you to have access to better things or easier towards certain things, but ultimately doesn't matter. The context, the environment where you have been put inserted into this reality, it really doesn't matter. It's how you deal with it. It's like, what do I choose? How do I choose to act now? Okay, I have this limitation, whatever. How do I continue? How do I move forward from here on? And yeah, that makes the biggest difference. And as I said, but like, again, discrimination, all this stuff, like the certain beliefs and prejudices are dissolving and will dissolve as more people understand these things, work on themselves. They don't allow themselves to just like lament and say, okay, I'm a victim, I can't do anything. Yes, you can stay there for a period of time, but after a while it's like, let's do something, let's move really forward. So as you find the power within yourself to change yourself, to be better, to elevate yourself, you're not helping just yourself, you help others as well, because you will show an example. You will dissolve a bit more of those prejudices against, I don't know, your group of people or whatever. So that's what you should take from this. And also, another thing that I was like saying earlier, yes, this like discrimination, abuse has to be addressed, but we can't deal with this like we used to deal before, like off with their heads. If they did this or said that, off with their head. It doesn't work that either from now on, because it's not about eye for an eye at this point. Right now it's about building from another level. So in order to get to another level, you have to do the work to move to the next level. You can't just off with their head. It doesn't work that way anymore. You have to do something else. And that something else starts within you. That's the bottom line. So what do I mean with all of this explanation? Is that all life matters, but at the same time, not. Well, nothing really matters. And what do I mean by that? Because I know it sounds controversial. Remember that this is the level of story. It has many layers. You're within the story, you're within the thought. Outside of it is just a thought. You ultimately are a thought of source. It's thought thinking itself, thinking. Also, remember that this is a time, this is a time of great change within the story. And certain elements of source, well, face of source, regardless of, inside the story, race, they will exit because they cannot withstand the acceleration, the energetic system, what they have accumulated, the buildup of patterns, the things that they couldn't process and let go of things. The acceleration will push them out, will force them to exit, whether it's going to be a certain disease or whatever, something like quick, or I don't know, depending on how much you can withstand, be long or whatever. So I know that this also sounds cruel, but still this is happening. And this doesn't like think, it's like, oh, is this race or that race? No, it's like who can make it and who cannot. Like, although life continues, even for those that exit this particular stage in this story, in this scenario. So keep that in mind as well. I hope this is interesting or helpful. And regardless of what has been this year, try to spend the last days of the years in the most pleasant, magical way you can. And yeah, have a lovely time and see you next year. Ciao. But still there's pockets of reality on this planet that still